What chemical acid peel is right for you? As you guys know, I do a lot of acid peels here on this channel. And with that in mind, I've been doing some research and I did get myself this chemical acid peel book, which has been very insightful. So I've got all my acids out on the table and we're gonna go through these acids. Like, can you do a chemical peel at home? Maybe what are the different options to you? Where can you get these things? The chemical peels I've done to myself. But we're gonna go through a bunch of concepts right now. So here we go. So there's 3 types of hydroxy acids. There's alpha hydroxy, beta hydroxy, and polyhydroxy. Today we're going to be talking about alpha and beta. I'm not talking about poly. I'm also going to be talking about TCA and how I've enjoyed using that, plus blended peels. So how do acids work on the skin? Like, how are they making you look younger? How are they improving your skin? Well, basically all they're doing is they're going into your skin cells, like down through the layers, and they're just breaking them up. And they do this in 2 different ways. The 2 ways that acids basically disrupt your skin cells and make them fall off is 1, keratolysis, and 2, keratocoagulant. Very fun words to say. Basically, all these are is 2 different processes for how acids are going to disrupt the skin cells. I really hate that I have to remember how to say this word without looking at it. The first process is keratolysis, and basically glycolic, lactic, and salicylic use this process. Glycolic and lactic are alpha hydroxy acids, and salicylic is a beta hydroxy acid. Glycolic acid is made from sugarcane, lactic acid comes from milk products, the salicylic acid, which is a BHA, the beta hydroxy, comes from willow bark. These 3 acids are very familiar and common. They are in low concentrations in lots of skincare, in those peel pads, in a lot of different varieties, in face washes, like you name it, it's in it. Basically, these can be at higher concentrations and they can actually cause your skin to peel off. But they all do this with the keratolysis process, which means your skin cells fit together like this. In between them, there is something called a desomon bond. So basically, it's just like connecting your skin cells together. It's like glue, skin cement, whatever you want to think of it as. When the acids go down into your skin, they are breaking those bonds, which is why your skin cells will separate and flake up. The keratocoagulant process is different. It's not basically tearing apart those bonds, but it's going in and denaturing the protein in your skin cells. And the one that does this is TCA. And that is the reason when you do a TCA peel, your skin can go white, or you can see that kind of like speckling of white on your skin. That is because keratin is actually being coagulated by the TCA acid. It's not thermal heat though. Even though your face will feel like it's on fire, it's not coagulating it, like cooking it the way that you would cook an egg white and it would turn white, you know, like it's clear and then it turns white. I think of coagulating the skin similar to that because you have like a clear skin cell that goes white, but it's not exactly the same as cooking an egg white, because cooking an egg white is a thermal process, like the heat is turning it. This is a chemical process. So the coagulant is happening because the acid is denaturing that protein, like in ceviche. You know ceviche, the Spanish or the Mexican seafood dish? They take fish and they take an acid like lemon juice. And they actually change that protein, cooking it, making it available to eat by denaturing some of that protein with the acid. When we think about a TCA peel, it's breaking up the skin differently than the beta and alpha hydroxy acids, but all 3 of them basically have the same thought process where they're going into your skin and they're changing the situation so that skin flakes off. Is that making sense?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, no.
I like ceviche.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that that's your takeaway so far.
Yeah.
Ceviche. Ray, are you ready for some ceviche? I cooked it without heat. And typically for at-home peels, you're not going to be going down to the dermis, although some concentrations that you can buy online probably would do that for you, but you have to be super careful. Like, I know on my channel, I do a lot of things that might not seem super safe to a lot of people, and my skin has a skin tone that actually makes it easier for me to get away with some things like deeper acid peels, because my skin is not going to hyperpigment the way somebody somebody who has darker skin tones would. But with that in mind, there are still things that like you don't want to do super deep. So typically when you are doing an at-home peel, you are staying in the epidermis. Even though it can come off in sheets, you are not going down into the dermis. The depth at which a chemical peel penetrates your skin are going to vary, and they're going to be based on some factors. It's going to be based on the chosen acid you pick. So for instance, if you pick glycolic, it might go deeper than lactic. The percentage strength, so the concentration of the acid you're picking. 3, the pH of the acid. So pH, very low on the scale is super acidic, above 7 becomes basic, so 7 is neutral on the pH scale. The acids that you're usually using are down at the pH of like 2 to 1.5%, and that is a very acidic pH. The time applied is going to affect how deep it goes. The application technique, so are you like rubbing it in or are you just lightly swabbing it on? How many layers did you apply? So when I do a TCA peel, I usually apply 3 to 5 layers depending on the concentration and how long it takes for my skin to frost. People will do different things to get prepared for a peel. For instance, you can use Retin-A. A lot of times you'll use it maybe up to a week before you're going to do your acid peel, and then you'll stop. Or a lot of people will use hydroquinone as well because it basically eliminates or prevents melanin from producing color. By doing that, if you do a peel and let's say you have a lot of pigment in your skin, it's going to be a deep peel. Doing hydroquinone beforehand can help minimize any future pigmentation you might get from a deeper peel. And then of course, like your own skin, do you have like thick, oily skin? If you do, that can also affect how you're going to take acid into your skin and if you're going to peel or if it's just going to kind of be like a light slough. So let's talk about alpha hydroxy acids. The first one being glycolic. It is made from sugar cane. It has the smallest molecule. So when you think about glycolic, it can be super effective at getting deep into your skin and helping turn over cells, which brings up newer skin and tightens your skin and helps with fine lines and things like that. But with that in mind, not a lot of people love glycolic, especially people who have darker skin, because the glycolic can go very deep and people who have a lot of melanin in their skin might not want that to happen. Glycolic needs to be thought about in that kind of regard. Like the higher the concentration of glycolic, the more it's going to penetrate deep into your skin, and glycolic will not stop unless you neutralize it. Now, there are some different ideas on this. First, glycolic does not always need to be neutralized. And what I mean by that is with all the peel pads and all the different toners and things like that that are on the market, you do not need to neutralize those because they are below a 10% concentration. Anything above a 10% concentration of glycolic needs to be neutralized with something that's going to help pH balance it, meaning you are doing more than just splashing water on your face. You are actually using something that's basic that's going to bring up the acidic pH and help neutralize it. Next up is lactic acid. Now, lactic acid is awesome for a lot of different reasons and for a lot of skin tones because it is a much bigger molecule than that of glycolic, which means for people who do have darker skin, lactic can be very good for them because it's not going to go super deep. It can't because its molecular weight is too big. So it kind of sits on the top, kind of in the first few layers of skin. It does a great hydration for the skin, but it's not going to go super deep and cause any side effects. Lactic is much gentler than glycolic or that of TCA for sure. So for instance, this is a 90% lactic acid. And I did this just straight out of the box. I actually have a video here on YouTube of me doing it. And I did get a little bit of cracking and peeling around my mouth, but it wasn't anything like what happens with a TCA. I recently did this Mandelic peel on an Amazon Live, and you can still go watch it. It's there. This is a 50%, and Mandelic acid is super, super gentle. It's made from almonds. It's similar to lactic in the sense that it's great for people who have darker skin tones because it's not going to go super deep. It's gentle and it will exfoliate the top layers of your skin, and it does not need to be neutralized. And apparently Mandelic can act similarly to salicylic. There are so many more AHAs, but those are the main ones that are going to actually be like acid peels on their own. Everything else is gentler and gets kind kind of mixed into products to help stabilize them and maybe boost the AHA efficacy, but not necessarily be concentrated into one AHA. And I wrote a blog post that identifies more of these different things and talks about them, but I don't think we need to go over them here. The description below will have the link to the blog post. Beta hydroxy acids. The main one that I'm familiar with is salicylic, and I actually do not have a straight salicylic acid here, although you can find them in 20 and 30% strengths. I actually have just some in mixed combo mixes, like my ordinary peel solution. Now, this is not necessarily something that's going to make your skin peel, but this one does have 2% salicylic acid in it. In my Jesners, they don't make this type of Jesner peel anymore, but this is 30% and it has 30% lactic, 30% salicylic, and 30% resorcinol. Resorcinol is actually being replaced with TCA in the Jesner peel because resorcinol apparently has some kind of health complications, and so it's being removed from acid peels. However, resorcinol has been around for almost 150 years and people have used it in peels for a really long time. It just, I guess, has some side effects, so it's being changed out for things like TCA. Salicylic acid comes from willow bark, and the thing that's great about salicylic acid is that it's lipophilic, meaning that it is fat soluble, so it is going to go deep into your pores where there's oil, and it's going to break that up and help it breathe and get any dirt that gets attached to oil and could cause breakouts out. That's very different than the AHAs that aren't fat soluble. I mean, mandelic, I guess, is, but the other ones like glycolic and lactic, they're not. So they're just breaking up the bonds between the skin cells. They're not necessarily going inside the pores. So that's why you'll see a lot of mixed acids where you have glycolic and salicylic, or lactic and salicylic, or now TCA and salicylic, because the salicylic is able to penetrate into those pores. Salicylic is known to be the acid for people who are suffering from acne and breakouts. You'll see it in lots of things, from medicated face cleansers like the La Roche-Posay Effaclar. It has 2% salicylic acid in it, and so every day somebody who's suffering from acne can like wash and cleanse their face and get a little bit of dose of salicylic acid. But of course, it comes in topicals. It is usually mixed with benzoyl peroxide because that helps kill the P bacteria that is found in acne. The concentration of 30% salicylic is considered a superficial pill. Now, you can elevate that, and salicylic, because it's safe for people who have darker skin tones. There was a study I was just reading, and it's actually great, and I linked to it in the blog post, where the doctor did basically a big group of people who had darker skin. They did a 20 or 30% concentration of salicylic plus 10% TCA, because most people who have darker skin should not be doing TCA because, again, it can go deep into the skin, it can create hyperpigmentation, and it's like the opposite of what you want. And so people who have darker skin but maybe have things that they want to clear up are kind of trapped in this situation of like, they can't really do TCA, they can't really do lactic, they can't really do glycolic, but lactic and salicylic don't go super deep. So the way that they've kind of balanced that out is you do a higher percentage concentration of salicylic and you add in the 10% TCA, and that was giving great results. And how she was doing it was she was doing 4 treatments spaced 2 weeks apart. And that's linked in the blog post, so you can go read about that as well. Our TCA acids. Now, TCA comes in lots of different concentrations. TCA is a man-made acid. They basically like take chlorine and swap out salts or something. I mean, I'm not a chemist, so I don't even want to go there. But they manipulate it somehow and they make this acid. And this acid basically coagulates protein, and that breaks up skin cells. It feels like fire. I've done lots of these peels. I've shown them online, and you've seen me kind of cry out in pain, like last week's video. It does hurt. In fact, last week's video was this 30% TCA plus the 5% salicylic. And this is a very intense peel. This is not something that I recommend even for somebody who has white skin like me until they've done a lot of peels, because even for me, this was really on the verge of being like the top I'll probably do at home for myself. TCA is no longer sold on Amazon. My first bottles of TCA did come from Amazon, but Amazon has decided to no longer sell TCA. So now I buy TCA on eBay. And again, that is linked in the description below, and you can watch a lot of my TCA peel videos here on YouTube. So if you've watched some of my TCA peel videos, you've seen my skin go white. That is a kind of like a side effect and also kind of a thing that you watch for when you do TCA peels. Now, based on the concentration, you might not go white, you might not frost. It just depends on the concentration and on your skin and how good you prepped it beforehand, either with retin-A's and also with doing a really good degreasing on your skin. It's really, really critical to degrease your skin before any type of acid peel. I like TCA because I feel like it really tightens my skin. It cleans out my pores, even though normally my TCA doesn't have salicylic in it. This one it did, so it even did a better pore cleaning. But because I take off such a thick layer of skin, I feel like it just like knocks all my pores, kind of cleans off the heads and everything as well. It has really helped even out my skin tone, and all of the freckles and sunspots and damage that I had done while living in Hawaii for years has really been improved from my consistent use of TCA over the years. I typically only do 2 TCA peels a year, and those I try to isolate into the fall, winter. I like to usually do them November and December, sometimes in January. This year I got way off track and behind, and we didn't end up doing it till March. Again, like that's not my ideal situation. The ideal situation for me living in North America would be to do it in the winter, fall months. TCA does not need to be neutralized the way glycolic acid does. In fact, only glycolic acid needs to be neutralized. TCA will run its course and finish. With that in mind, TCA is crazy painful. When you get the frost, when you get the layers on and you're happy with it, I splash water. I've made baking soda paste in the past, but you really don't have to change the pH of TCA. You just have to dilute its concentration. So if you have 30% TCA on your skin and now all of a sudden you start splashing water on your skin, you're just diluting that concentration, and now the burn is going to subside. You're not neutralizing it, you're just changing its concentration, and at some point that burn stops. When you're thinking about acid peels for your skin, you really need to look at the Fitzpatrick scale and decide on what skin type you have. Skin types 1 through 3 can handle TCA and glycolic quite well. Skin types 4 through 6 don't. And so you have to be very aware of your skin type and then proceed with caution based on the concentrations you're choosing, which is why I've tried my best to find acids and concepts for people who have darker skin than me, because I know that not everyone is as fair as me, and so you have to be more careful with the acids you're using. There's a lot of blended peels you can find online. The thing that you just have to constantly be aware of is your skin type. So if you're darker skinned and you have a lot of breakouts, then probably mandelic acid, lactic acid, and salicylic acids are going to be the best types of acids for you. There's a lot of products that have glycolic in them, but not all of them need to be neutralized. So it's only when glycolic exists that's over a 10% concentration on its own. So for instance, if we think about this ordinary peel solution, it is AHA 30% and a 2% BHA. The 2% BHA is coming from salicylic. The 30% AHA is not necessarily all glycolic. I wrote down all the ingredients in the blog post, but my point is when you look at the directions on how to use the ordinary peeling solution, it must be lower than 10% glycolic, because all they say to do is rinse it off after 10 minutes. You do not need to neutralize it. And that's basically how you know kind of like how intense is the glycolic in this. If it doesn't specify that you need to neutralize with a pH balancer afterwards, then you know it's below 10% glycolic. Okay, so I realized that this was a lot of information and maybe it feels a little scattered to you, so definitely look at the blog post, but here is kind of my overall takeaway that I hope that you get from this. First, your skin tone matters when it comes to the chemical peels. So first, identify what skin type you are on the Fitzpatrick scale before doing any acid peel at home. 2, there are a ton of AHA options, but the most common are glycolic, and that requires neutralization of concentrations 10% and higher. It has the smallest molecular weight, which is why it can penetrate deeply into your skin. Best for skin tightening and for lighter skin tones. Lactic does not need to be neutralized. It is a much larger molecule and thus cannot penetrate deep into your skin. And this is what makes it ideal for darker skin tones. Salicylic is the most common BHA. It does not require neutralization either, and it seeks to break up oily pores and dirt because it's a lipophilic. Salicylic is ideal for those dealing with acne, however, it can be drying, so just make sure that you're getting a lot of moisturizer on. There are two ways that acids break up skin cells. First, the keratolysis, and then the second is the keratocoagulant. TCA is the type of acid that breaks up skin cells by the process of keratocoagulant, and it is visible when your skin is frosting. You can see this process taking place. This acid is severe and can scar you, so please be careful. Any TCA concentration over 30% is considered deep, and you should not do anything further than that at home without a ton more research and being very adept at doing skin peels. TCA does not need to be neutralized. However, once you reach the point in the peel that you're happy with, you can make yourself more comfortable by splashing water on and diluting it. Doing deep peels where your skin sheds like sheets of skin is not a normal monthly protocol. I only do these about 2 times a year, so please keep that in mind. I got a question one day about, can you do this peel every month? No, that's not what you do. You need your skin to build back up. Otherwise, you're never getting the improvements that you really want. All right, you guys, I hope that gave you some insight. I get asked about acids all the time. I'm not saying that I'm an expert. As we know, I am not a professional in any sense of the word, but I do a lot of these things myself at home. And by doing this video, it really helps me dig deep and get more information, which I hope is not only helpful for you, but it does help me too. So thank you for encouraging me to do this. Thank you for joining me on this video. Check the blog post because the information is probably laid out a little bit better than what I just shared with you here because I was able to write it and organize thoughts better. But I hope you guys are having a great day and make sure to wear your sunscreen this summer. Bye, guys.
Maybe we can dance the night away. It's what I wanna do now.